I thought love had no expiration date. I'm 76 years old, and if you're over 60, what I'm about to say might upset you. But I wish someone had said it to me, because this isn't advice I read in a book. It cost me peace. I was 61 when I met him, widowed, still wearing my wedding ring some days, not because I couldn't take it off, but because I didn't know who I was without it. And then he came along. Gentle voice, patient smile. A man who looked at me like I wasn't finished yet. When he held my hand the first time, I felt chosen again, and at our age. That feeling is intoxicating, not because you're desperate, but because you remember what it feels like to matter to someone. So when people say you're too old to fall in love, they're wrong. You can fall in love at 60. You can fall hard. But here's what no one tells you. Falling in love after 60 can cost you more than it gives you. If I could go back to that afternoon, to that first dinner, to that first time he called me beautiful, I wouldn't do it again. And I need you to understand why. Loneliness is quieter than you think. When you pass 60, your house changes, not all at once, slowly, one room at a time. The children are gone. Their bedrooms stay clean for days, then weeks, then months. The noise fades, no doors slamming, no music playing down the hall, no one calling your name from the other room. The evenings stretch longer. You start eating dinner earlier, not because you're hungry, but because there's nothing else to interrupt the silence. You leave the television on even when you're not watching it, just to hear another human voice in the room. You go to bed without saying goodnight to anyone, and that's when you feel it most, the quiet beside you. You tell yourself, I'm fine. You say it to your children, you say it to your friends, you say it to yourself. But what you really mean is, I miss being seen, not needed, seen. There's a difference. So when someone new looks at you, really looks at you, like you're still interesting, still beautiful, still alive, it doesn't feel like romance, it feels like oxygen. And when you've been holding your breath for years, you don't question the air. You just breathe it in. At 20, you build. At 60, you protect. When you're young, you fall in love with possibility. You don't think about consequences. You don't calculate loss. You don't measure risk. You just jump. When you're older, you don't jump. You scan. You fall in love with relief. Relief from silence. Relief from carrying every decision alone. Relief from asking yourself, is this how the rest of my life is going to feel? And that relief can feel exactly like love. But at 60, you're not starting from nothing. You have a house, not just walls, a history. You have routines that took years to build. You have friends who knew you before your hair turned gray. You have children watching quietly, and so does he. At 20, you build a life together. At 60, you are trying to merge two finished ones, two kitchens, two financial histories, two sets of adult children, two different ways of folding towels, and neither of you wants to lose what you already survived to create. So you begin negotiating. Where will we live? Whose traditions matter more? Who adjusts? Who sacrifices? And here's the part nobody tells you. At this age, you don't fear being alone. You fear losing the stability you fought so hard to rebuild. Love at 60 is not reckless. It's cautious. And cautious love is heavier than it looks. Love is soft. Reality is not. No one tells you about the practical side, because practical isn't romantic. Your children start asking careful questions. Not accusing, just careful. Mom, have you thought about what this means? His children ask questions too. Polite, measured, but protective. There are conversations about money, about whose house, about whose name is on what, about inheritance, about what happens if something happens. And that phrase, if something happened, starts appearing everywhere in quiet dinners, in awkward silences, in documents you hadn't opened in years. Suddenly, what felt like a second chance at love starts feeling like a merger. Two estates, two histories, two families watching from opposite sides of the table. I told myself love would solve it, that if we were sincere enough, kind enough, patient enough, it would all settle. But love doesn't untangle legal documents. Love doesn't silence adult children who are afraid of losing what's theirs. Love doesn't erase suspicion, and it doesn't guarantee safety. At 30, you risk your heart. At 60, you risk your stability, and that is a very different gamble. Loneliness softens your judgment. He wasn't cruel, he wasn't evil. That would have made it easier. He was attentive, protective, present, but slowly. He began adjusting the edges of my world. Little comments, subtle corrections, small criticisms disguised as concern. You don't need to see your friends that often. They don't really understand you anymore. Why do you still talk to your late husband's family? That chapter is over. Let me handle your finances. It's easier if I take care of that. Nothing dramatic, no shouting, no doors slamming, just erosion, like water against stone. And here's the dangerous part. When you've been alone for years, control can feel like care. Jealousy can feel like protection. Possessiveness can feel like devotion. And when you're afraid of going back to silence, you tolerate things you would never have tolerated at 40. You excuse them. You minimize them. You tell yourself, he just worries. He just loves deeply. He's just old-fashioned. But deep down, your body knows. It tightens a little. It hesitates before agreeing. It whispers something is off. And if you ignore that whisper long enough, that becomes your new normal. Loneliness doesn't just make you vulnerable. It makes almost anyone look like love. Why was I becoming smaller? I had already built a full life, not a perfect one, but a complete one. Friends who knew my stories without explanation. Grandchildren who ran into my arms without hesitation. A rhythm that worked. Morning coffee by the same window, Wednesday lunches with the same two women, evenings that felt calm instead of chaotic. It wasn't exciting, but it was mine, and slowly. I began adjusting everything around him, canceling lunches. It's easier if I stay home tonight. Changing routines. I can move my walk to later. Apologizing for things that had never required apology before. The way I decorated, the way I cooked, the way I spoke. Nothing dramatic, just smaller, quieter, more careful. One day I caught myself asking permission in my own kitchen. Is it okay if I make this? I heard the words come out of my mouth, and I didn't recognize the woman who said them. That frightened me more than being alone ever did, because loneliness is empty, but shrinking is erasing yourself in slow motion. At 20, compromise feels romantic. At 60, compromise should not cost you your voice. You should not be shrinking, not after surviving divorce, not after burying a husband, not after raising children, not after rebuilding your life from silence. At 60, you should be expanding. And the moment I realized I was becoming smaller, I knew something inside me was already breaking. Heartbreak feels different at 65. At 25, heartbreak hurts. You cry. You call your friends. You swear you'll never love again. And 6 months later, you're laughing in a new restaurant with someone else. At 65, heartbreak destabilizes. Your nervous system doesn't bounce back the same. Sleep doesn't return as quickly. Your trust doesn't rebuild as easily. Your sense of safety takes longer to recover. And time feels louder. When it ended, it wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no slammed doors. Just a quiet conversation where we both knew something had been eroding for months. And when he left, the silence came back. But this time it wasn't the same silence. It carried disappointment in him, in myself. I didn't just lose a man. I lost months of peace. I lost confidence. I lost the calm I had rebuilt after widowhood. I lost energy I could have spent on joy, on my grandchildren, on mornings that were once steady. And at this age, energy is everything, because you don't measure life in decades anymore. You measure it in seasons. And I had given one away. I wasn't afraid of being alone. It took me a while to admit this, longer than I'd like to confess. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I had already survived that. I had buried a husband. I'd slept on one side of the bed for years. I had learned how to fix small things myself. I had made peace with quiet mornings. No, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of feeling invisible. There's a difference. Alone is physical. Invisible is emotional. Alone means no one is in the room. Invisible means no one sees who you are, even when they are. And when he looked at me, really looked at me, it felt like I was being brought back into focus. But here's what I learned, and I need you to hear this carefully. You do not become visible by attaching yourself to someone. You do not become valuable because someone chooses you. You become visible when you are fully yourself, when your voice is steady, when your routines remain yours, when your opinions don't shrink to keep someone comfortable. And without realizing it, I had traded that for companionship, not love, companionship. And that is a very expensive trade at this age. What I would tell you, if you are over 60 and someone new walks into your life, pause. Not for a day, not for a weekend. Pause long enough to hear yourself think again. Not because love is wrong, not because companionship is foolish, but because peace, real peace, is rare. You don't realize how rare it is until you disturb it. Ask yourself quietly, when no one else is around, does this person add calm to my life? Or do they add uncertainty? Do I feel steadier or slightly on edge? Do I feel expanded or carefully reduced? At this stage of life, calm is more romantic than passion. Security is more seductive than chemistry. And consistency is more valuable than butterflies. Butterflies are beautiful at 25. At 65, they can be a warning. You are not starting from scratch anymore. You are protecting something you already survived to build. And solitude, quiet, dignified solitude, is infinitely better than shrinking beside someone. Never trade your stability for the temporary thrill of being chosen. At this age, being at peace is the real love story. I'm 76 now. I don't hate him. I don't regret meeting him. Some lessons only arrive through experience. But I learned something the hard way after 60. You don't need a boyfriend. You need stability. You need respect. You need to remain whole. You have already survived heartbreak, loss, disappointment, rebuilding. You did not come this far to hand your peace over for the comfort of being chosen. And if someone cannot fit gently into the life you carefully rebuilt, let them pass. not with anger, not with bitterness, just with clarity. Because at this age, peace is not negotiable, time is not renewable, and your nervous system deserves calm. The most beautiful relationship you will ever have after 60 is not the one that makes your heart race. It's the one that lets it rest. And sometimes that relationship is the one you finally build with yourself.